Let's do this one last time. My name is Awesome. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that bit. I'm sorry. Hey guys, it's Awesomemay. Unlike a lot of anime and movies I review, I don't know how to start this video. I usually open up complaining about bad ones like Secret Life of Pets 2 or the Emoji Movie, and then I explain why I think the movie I am reviewing is better and how it compares to the overall medium of animation. But this one's different because it's such a work of art. It's so dang good it feels like it's in a ballpark of its own. You can't really compare Across the Spider-Verse to any other anime and movie we've gotten because it's so different. It's like if I started a video talking about childhood doodles and then got deep into Picasso. Two different things I'm working with here. But I'm just gonna start and say it straight up. Across the Spider-Verse had broken all my expectations for an animated sequel. When it was first announced, the movie had felt so far away in its release date that predictions in my head were kinda non-existent. Spider-Man is so open to so many storylines and it's not set to one lore. You can kinda create the missions he goes on by yourself that have nothing to do with past comics or events in a Spider-Man wiki. So this was very hard to predict, unlike a Mario movie that follows so closely to its material. And boy did the creators of this movie understand the freedom they had. And it shows so much in this movie that the creators genuinely liked the story they were starting. It felt so new and personal for a Spider-Man character. Unless it is actually Spider-Man lore. I've never read the Miles Morales comics. I've never read the Spider-Man comics. I mean, I probably have, but I don't remember. I just like the movies. I'm sorry, guys. I can't believe I admitted that. And not to compare to the live actions, but I'm going to. My big gripe with Spider-Man movies is that it feels so set in stone on outcomes. Villains are so villainy. Good guys are so good guy. And Across the Spider-Verse completely eliminates that and really takes on the idea that there is no good and bad. Like one of my favorite quotes, "There is no good or bad people, there is just people who do bad things." And that's why there is no villain in this movie. There's just two sides of the characters and their outlooks are much different. To Miguel, who most would consider the anti-villain in this movie, he sees what Miles is doing as unreasonable and for no reason. When, spoilers, the world is gonna fight back at him anyway. Miguel is only trying to stop Miles from creating more problems and hurting more people, which is reasonable, but then on the other hand, you got Miles who would do anything for his father, spoilers, to stay alive. He's sick of people telling him exactly how he has to be. Throwback to that insane line in the movie, "Never have I ever heard a line this hard, I got chills." I'm sorry for saying hard, it's cringy I know, but if I was the writer of this dialogue scene, I would go outside and breathe in the air, maybe have a golden robe on, maybe I would drink some vodka if I legally could, and then I would realize I'm a genius. Anyways, to Miles, saving his dad is also reasonable. The movie does such a good job letting you know, hey, these are two characters that disagree, and there is no good or bad ending to this. And that's why I love this movie, and that's why I love the cliffhanger. And one could argue and say, wait a minute, Spot is the villain. And that would be obvious, but I don't even know if he's really a villain. If anything, this guy was harming nobody until Miles obliterated him. And they threw a bagel at him, no wonder he was gonna become evil. If I got a bagel thrown at me, I instantly start becoming a dark void of anger. Anyways, this intro feels like I'm getting too close to a conclusion, and this is just supposed to be the intro. So before we go any further, let's get into the animation, the characters, the music, the plot. Let's get into all that. Like and subscribe. Let's start off with the story. The story in this movie is absolutely insane. Unlike a lot of other animated movies, this movie just gets right into it and doesn't really focus too much on giving you an extensive rundown background check or recap, and it works really well. It really felt like its main purpose was to continue the story to fans and not try to become another box office smash type deal where the movie tries to make you understand every little bit of the story and what happened in the first one. But that doesn't mean it is hard to understand the story to this movie. It still remains pretty simple with its concept. I guess, I don't know. It's a crazy concept, but you'll get it. Still following the multiverse pattern from the original. In this movie, we take on Miles still in the prime of his Spider-Man life and dealing with the loss of friendships and his forbidden dimension love with Gwen. It also focuses on the dynamic of sacrifices being Spider-Man, which was so emotional. No Way Home kind of did this, but not to this extent, and you would have like a scene midway through where they would pop their backs together, so it took away the emotion. I'd say one of my only issues with this movie is the beginning and the middle of this movie, because we get so quick into the mission they're going on in this multiverse concept that we don't get too much of a chance to actually see Miles do Spider-Man things. We don't get to see much of Miles saving people or, you know, being an actual neighborhood Spider-Man, which is okay because we get that with normal Spider-Man movies, and we got some of that in the first one, but I do wish we had some more Spider-Man slice of life where he's just doing Spider-Man activities. But this one hones in on the multiverse and it works well. This is the first 10 minutes of Into the Spider-Verse out of context. I'm putting it here because nobody got my joke on Twitter. Please tell me you guys get it. Come on. The Gwen part. Another thing I was worried about is that they were going to end up having so many new characters, it would water down Miles's importance and become very hard to keep track of. And considering how much I was obsessed with the dynamic of Miles and Gwen in the first movie, I was hoping they weren't going to forget about it. But this movie actually does the best job I've seen of handling multiple characters like this. There's not a single character in the main group that doesn't have a purpose to the story. They all respond to things in their little special ways, and it transitions so smoothly from their dialogue to action. Every scene where Miles was talking to Miguel had me in chills. It was weirdly motivational. I also really liked Miguel. I really liked the fan art made of him. Indian Spider-Man was the highlight. He is just the coolest, most wholesome Spider-Man, the most wholesome character in cinema, and they gave him the perfect amount of screen time. I can't stop quoting the chai tea line. He has the smoothest animated movements, and he's also voiced by the guy who played the taxi guy in Deadpool, my favorite Deadpool character, and seeing Paviter interact with other characters was amazing writing. Spider-Punk was a really good character too, and I think he got the most hidden development because it introduces him as this kind of don't give a crap character, but then he becomes like the biggest secret hype man to Miles and whispers to Miles as he's in the cage that he's gonna get through this. It really felt like he was the only one on Miles' side, which was unexpected for his character, and I loved that switch up. I don't know if I got deeper into Spot earlier, but Spot is the best villain I've seen in a Spider-Man movie for ages because he starts off so not scary and then slowly warps into this heating ball of destroying the earth anger. And even the director said when they researched this villain, they were like, oh, he's not really that evil at all. He's just a nerdy little professor. And then as they continued researching, they found out he was the most evil villain in the Spider universe. And I love that. And of course, my favorite Spider-Man, Lego Peter Parker. Literally the best scene in the movie. I don't care about when Miles said, I'ma do my own thing, or that scene where he's getting chased by all the spider people. I don't care about those scenes because Lego Spider-Man was the highlight of this film. As this scene was playing, I turned over to my mom and said, now I really want a Lego Spider-Man movie. Also, I'm gonna get into it when I get into the animation of this movie, but that entire Lego sequence was animated by a 14-year-old. What? I think what makes this movie so much better of a sequel compared to a lot of other animated sequels we've gotten is that it keeps the parts and aspects that you do like from the original, but then expands that into a new story and a bigger adventure, where I feel like a lot of sequels fall under because they feel like they're regurgitating so much of the original, but it feels watered down because the new story just isn't as interesting. And I also notice a lot of sequels just decide to randomly go for a more goofy vibe, as in the vibe, not the Disney character, although the Goofy movie has the greatest sequel, which this can sometimes work depending on the movie's characters, but then can completely eliminate the reason why we like the original so much. Spider-Verse 2 does this great job of introducing a very deep and dark and crazy plot-twisted story, but then slips in those fun character moments where they're still their silly selves, if not using this deep story to enhance the silliness. And it's not like a sequel that only hones in on the silliness and forgets everything else. This movie reaches a balance. With Croods 2, the goofiness did work because it played on the goofiness of these cavemen while still leaving some bit of drama, not reaching that full extent of the intense rooting you have for Spider-Verse 2, but it still gets away with being silly. And that leads me to the sequel I feel doesn't get away with being goofy, also by some of the creators of the Spider-Verse movies, and that is the Lego Movie 2. Yep, another video where I talk about the Lego Movie. It's not going anywhere. The Lego Movie definitely pops in my head because how similar it feels to Spider-Verse. Chris Miller and Phil Lord, the directors of the Lego Movie, both had a huge hand in these movies. Also because they're two movies that have been life-changing for animation. Like, imagine being Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and after finishing the Lego Movie and winning a ton of awards, you then go on to work on Into the Spider-Verse and win even more awards and change the future of animation twice. Absolute icons. This whole part was recorded before I found out Phil Lord overworked animators, so I guess ignore everything I just said. But where I feel the Lego Movie 2 falls flat is because the goofiness overthrows the characters. The Lego Movie was so likable because it showed you how you can make a fun children's movie, but introduce this clever yet almost dark plotline to it. And the Lego Movie 2 kinda does this, but it doesn't feel like it knows what it wants regarding the plot. So then you get like 10 minutes of them dancing to a satire song that goes on for way too long. It starts to not become satire, and it doesn't feel like the characters get to know each other any more than what they learned in in the first one. And it just repeats that whole, wait, wild style might have actually been sweet at one time, which we had already gone over and knew in the first one. It also just forgot its adult fan base and went all super simple, childish. Into the Spider-Verse 2 manages to break this curse and expand on these characters even more, revealing new things that you get to know about Miles and about Gwen, how Miles is obsessed with Gwen. What is this? This is me when I'm drawing Judy Hopps in SFW. I also think Spider-Verse 2 gets a huge higher up as a sequel because of how much they left in the first one for you to discover. Miles and his dad's relationship was not even close to finding a balance, so you have that side plot already. Gwen had still this mysterious backstory, so you had that to dive into. And Peter now has a child, another plot line you can discover. And just them having so many things that weren't wrapped up in the first one that the audience cared about gave them so much more material to work with outside of the already established plot. And instead of forgetting about the first movie's plot lines like most sequels, Spider-Verse 2 makes whole diaries on these moments. It gives Gwen the entire intro to shine through, and we even get to see Miles and his dad get closer to each other. If anything, in this movie, Jefferson is like best bros with Spider-Man, also known as his son, and I almost just want to see the next movie to see him find out that his son is Spider-Man. Speaking of things this movie is better than, watching this movie after Super Mario makes the Mario movie look like absolute dookie. You can feel the writers of Spider-Verse getting super deep in with the plot of this movie. You can feel the energy of the intense focus they had when they thought of new ideas and loopholes in the multiverse concept. The Mario movie, however, feels like the writer wrote 4 ideas and was like, my day is done. He probably supped really good. It didn't feel like they had any trouble or deeper thought when it came to the plot and meaning of the Mario movie, which doesn't mean the Mario movie is bad. I'm a big connoisseur of variety if you've seen my other videos, and I don't think every movie, especially animated movies, need to have a deep story every time. That would be exhausting and simpleness would be gone, but I mostly compare because it better explains why this movie works, not only being also based on characters, but as a movie that heavily relies on story. The next category, the animation. This is the most obvious part, and it's something you can't really get away with not talking about when it comes to the Spider-Verse movies. And you guys know how much I love stylistically pleasing animation. Me talking about animated water and animated colors has kind of become an inside joke in my community. Anytime a new animated movie comes out, somebody will message me, hey, what did you think about the water? And that is so funny to me. I love it. It's no secret that this movie and the first one has really revolutionized and given room for more creative animated movies. I feel like once animation studios got the hang of 3D, we just kind of got that same realistic but still very much 3D render looking animation. A reason why I think Disney has kind of fell behind the past few years in the animation hierarchy is because once we got Frozen 2 and Encanto, we were really getting sick of the Frozen looking world of every Disney movie. Not that those movies are bad, but it wasn't until we got Captain Underpants and Peanuts where it felt like new styles were finally being favored. Ones that clashed 3D with 2D, and this was really certified when Spider-Verse came out. If anything, Spider-Verse took the aspects of Captain Underpants and Peanuts and did it for the entire runtime, and oh my god, does Across the Spider-Verse manage to somehow be even more animated than the first one. Like, there is not a single piece in this movie that isn't moving or doesn't look different. There isn't a single scene where I was like, that doesn't look good, except for like Gwen's eyes slightly moving apart towards the middle. That kind of threw me off. But other than that, there is so much uniqueness and newness into every scene to the point I could not imagine a world where this movie didn't look like this. Imagine what the Spider-Verse movies would feel like if it was just the same 3D generic animation you'd see in Disney animated movies. Every style in this movie feels like it can appeal to every single person. You got the beginning where Gwen's world is animated like a graphic novel and the colors around her switch with her emotions like a mood ring, telling the story beyond just the dialogue. It gave me flashbacks to color changing pencils, like the joke I mentioned earlier if you didn't get it. I think this movie captures almost the exact feel of watching YouTube animation, and hear me out on this. When you're watching a reanimated project, you stay because you want to see all the different styles and laugh at the creative ones and get confused over the most random live action ones, but everything still works out amazingly. Shrek Retold is a great example where animators were doing so many visually different ideas, but it didn't take you out of the story because every scene felt like it fit with the comedy or emotion in that certain sequence. And I think this movie embraces that classic adding whatever you want vibe you get from the internet and indie animation that we haven't seen with team efforts. They probably still had to follow animation orders from whoever was directing it, but it still felt like the studio pushed new ideas. And I love that anime and movies recently have been trying a different look because it opens the door for future movies that are based on comics or graphic novels to actually look like the material it's being taken from without studio executives trying to make it look vastly different to fit with the movie standard. Now we can get comic-based movies that actually kind of look like the comic. And of course, after talking about the animation, I have to get into the music, the soundtrack. They basically go together and they go together perfectly. Same with how much they utilize animation styles, they also really utilize music and have been known for that. Something I feel anime and movies and just movies in general miss so much out on. Definitely in regards to actual promotion and how much an original song can help. I want to know how much Sunflower actually helped to push the first movie because that was everywhere. Literally in every pop station, every mall, every Target. And when people search and listen to that song, it instantly showing you where it came from, which is the Spider-Verse movie. And that is the best promo we've seen, and it's promo that people actually want. And this movie knows that and still ties the popular sounding music with the actual movie. It isn't like the Rise of Gru soundtrack, where yes, it's original songs for the movie, but they don't really push the movie. It isn't like you can't watch a minion eat a Pop-Tart without Pharrell Williams singing about how happy the minion is. No shame to Pharrell Williams, his music is fire. But every song in Across the Spider-Verse tells the story with or more than the actual movie and visuals. I would not have felt nearly much emotion if it wasn't for Am I Dreaming at the end. That song coincidentally perfected how it feels to walk out of the theater after seeing a life-changing movie, feeling like the character in the movie. I walked out feeling like Spider-Man listening to that song. My personal favorite, however, was Mona Lisa by Dominic Fike. I don't know. I love that song so much because I think it fit what Sunflower did to me in the Spider-Verse movie. Also, I'm kind of a sucker for Dominic Fike. I can't tell you how many times I listened to 3 Nights when that came out. And I loved hearing Mona Lisa in the swinging scene. It was so calming and really made me go, yes, I'm strapped in now. It was the greatest ease into the rest of the story. However, although the music hit, there was this obvious sound problem in Spider-Verse 2. Most apparent in the opening with Gwen, her narration was completely overlapped with the music and drumming. I could not hear her. So much so when the movie started playing in the theater, my dad asked the family if he should tell someone how low the sound is, but I told him not to because I'm just used to movie theaters being weirdly quiet the past few years. I remember when theaters were blasting so loud, now I can't hear nothing, even my Elemental screening was quiet. It's a conspiracy, but then after seeing Spider-Verse 2, I saw tweets about this movie having actual mixing issues, and everybody was noticing it. There was marketing where the producers told you to tell the theater to turn up the volume when you go see it. And then I guess they said never mind and ended up releasing an updated version with better sound mixing. But at least now I know I wasn't going crazy. I am not going deaf. But it really goes to show how even big studios mess up their quality or sound. It makes me feel better about my own videos being terrible sometimes. Even blockbuster studios can relate. And you can't really blame any of the issues in Spider-Verse 2 because thinking about the production of this movie stresses me out and I didn't even work on it. This is the longest movie with the biggest amount of people working on it. Something was bound to go unnoticed when you have to focus on directing all of these people. Animators were working intense overtime. I've read tweets where animators said that this was the hardest movie they've ever worked on, so they can kind of get away with the cons in this movie like sound mixing. This is the last part I want to get into, which is the biggest spoiler, and that is the plotline where it's revealed that Miles is not supposed to be Spider-Man, and that he was actually going to end up being the Prowler, which is such a cool plotline. It's been a while where I actually was shocked in a theater. I wasn't as shocked as most people because doppelganger plot twist I don't really care for at all. It's definitely an overused concept in stories, but I think this movie does it a little less cliche by making it a integral part of the story. And the foreshadowing is crazy. It isn't like a quick thing they introduce to have something happen. And this movie does a really good job building tension all the way to the very end where this is revealed, which is what makes a movie appeal to an audience. A movie that builds something up to then reveal or reward you when it reaches a conclusion is, in my opinion, what makes a movie close to being perfect. This is something I'll get into in my Elemental video, but I feel like a lot of recent animated movies like Pixar lack that rise. They're totally different movies, but I think what makes Spider-Verse 2 so much better than Elemental is that with Elemental, it feels like a very straight line story, whereas with Spider-Verse 2, it has all these ups and downs and hills that you have to get through to reach a satisfying end, which will be the third one. Elemental feels so calm throughout the entire thing that when it ends, you're just like, okay. And that's the end of my Spider-Verse 2 review. I don't have a conclusion to this one as much as I do with other videos because this one's just kind of a scrambled thought video. which a lot of my videos are. Everything I needed to say was before this outro, and I really hope I delivered on showing my appreciation to these movies. I've been wanting to do a Spider-Verse video, but held back to just do it all in one on this video, and I'm glad the day is finally here. Actually, I think one of my first ever movie reviews is surprisingly about Spider-Verse, so it holds a special place on my channel. Before I end the video, I do actually want to give some of my predictions and things I look forward to in Beyond the Spider-Verse, the end of this saga, and my predictions are... Hey guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you liked this video. It's surprisingly one of my quickest reviews yet. For some reason, my reviews have been coming out like 3 months after the movie and hype, because I like to work on things that take me forever. But I hope they're good enough for you guys to not get tired of having to wait for my reviews. I like to add as much visuals as I can, just so it's not me talking over looping movie footage like it's a director's commentary. My Elemental review is in the works. That will be next. I'm going to be taking a little different approach with that one and kind of morphing it into a topic video instead of just a review. So I'm excited for that. I don't usually promote my other videos in actual videos, but I have been super proud of the videos I've made recently, so maybe check those out. Canceled Movies 2 took me a long time. I'm really proud of my Peanuts and Captain Underpants video essay, so if you have time and want to have a great week or weekend, go watch those. If you want, of course, I'm not forcing you. Okay, like, subscribe, stay awesome.